Leadership Pitfalls, the Folktales of Failure and Recovery. Mr. Jayesh Sampat, who's the CHRO of Ellen, will be bringing in his insight on this topic. I'm the host for this webinar. I'm Shikha. I'm the Director for Growth and Planning Analytics at Mirak. I'll just brief about Mirak. Mirak, which is our organization and brand. It is literally derived from Miraki, which means the essence of ourselves. So we've literally put in our heart and soul into whatever we do. So we partner with organizations to provide and contribute towards their learning and development needs, especially in the behavior aspect. We are the largest coaching and the most impactful leadership development company in India. You see a varied offering that we have, from learning to coaching to certification and also assessments. And also the numbers, they speak for themselves. We have partnered with almost 150 plus businesses, and we are partnering with more as we speak. We deliver at scale using our platform. We have a proprietary platform which we have developed internally, which we use to deliver the training and coaching and learning interventions. Yeah. Today's esteemed speaker and thought leader, Mr. Jayesh, he's a seasoned CHRO. He has been here in this industry for almost 25 plus years. His experiences span from India to APAC to UK, Australia, and China. He successfully led complex organization transformation, including rapid growth, mergers and acquisitions, and business turnarounds. With a deep expertise of HR spectrum, he has delivered excellence in talent management, leadership development, DEI, and total rewards. His immersion is cross-cultural experiences and enabled him to adapt seamlessly across different geographies. I talked about, different continents and geographies that he's already contributed into. He's a trusted partner to the CEOs and the boards, and he's leading team, and he's known for his ability to align for HR strategy. We are really glad to have you here today, Jayesh. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here. And I'll just hand it over to you to introduce, if you want to say a few words, and then
Sure. Thank you, Shikas. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you everyone for joining in. I know it's early evening, and it's good for you to make this kind of time and have this conversation. I will call it a conversation because while I come to the table and I share my experiences, these are my experiences, and there are no, especially in leadership, there are no right or wrongs. There are just experiences, and all of you also, I'm sure, have your experiences. So I hope this is more of an interactive session. So Shika, if you have any thoughts, any questions to start off with, I can start from responding to those. The topic is interesting. I'm excited to share my views on this.
Sure. So I'll just start with the most basic, Jayesh, which is, what are the most important leadership pitfalls that you have observed in the organization, and why do you think that they really would have occurred?
See, it's in my experience as I work with leaders, and all of you also work with leaders. With leadership comes a lot of power, and it's a hard road to reach there. And young leaders who are new leaders normally have fall in some of these categories. That is, once they get power, one of the things I've observed from a pitfall perspective is that they use this power for personal gains rather than organization needs. Yeah. So I've seen this work for them in the short run, but if this continues, there is a challenge, and they quickly move out of the organization or move to different roles, because yes, when one is a leader, there are privileges which one gets, but with leadership comes a lot of responsibility. And if the focus is on responsibility, the focus is on delivering in terms of the leadership role, then they thrive. But many new leaders fall in this trap of focusing on personal gain rather than focusing on building the team, building the organization. So this is one piece which I guess all of us, I'm sure all of us have worked in organizations and otherwise, even in public life, there are leaders, and we've seen a lot of them move more towards personal gain, and they are not there for the long term. They are not popular leaders, and therefore they do not stay in the leadership position for long. So this is one very, very common, most common, I would say, pitfall leaders have as they start their leadership journey. Yeah. The other is many leaders, and this is rather controversial because many leaders believe it is that they have experience, they have perspective, which has got them to this leadership position. Yeah. And they start believing the best way to lead is my way or the highway. Yeah. It has worked for many leaders, yeah, and many leaders are real thought leaders. They look at organizations, they look at marketing from a very different perspective, and sometimes, or many times, for some leaders, this works well. But generally speaking, if a leader uses my word or the highway, and is not open to understanding diverse perspectives from people who've been there in the organization, from customers, from various stakeholders, then the leader is bound to fail. And why I call this a pitfall is because, again, as a leader, the leader takes a lot of decision. One of the biggest piece of work which the leader does is to take decisions every day. And if his belief is my way or the highway, and he's not an open system, but a closed system saying that it's my way or the highway, then he is bound to, in the medium term, have challenges. I will only talk about two or three, and I'll leave it open to if anyone wants to add or has a comment on this. The last one, which I would like to share, is a lot of leaders, because organizations are commercially led, a lot of leaders are all about numbers, and they are emotionally disconnected. Yeah.
Yeah.
Many organizations or many leaders thrive again in the short term if they only look at numbers, but it is like cutting the hen who lays the golden egg. So if we only look at numbers quarter on quarter or year on year, and we do not focus on what brings these numbers, which is the emotional quotient of the organization, which is people, then again, the leadership journey for these leaders are pretty short. We've seen a lot of people who are good at business in terms of numbers, delivering those numbers, pushing people and delivering those numbers. They, because of their wins, if I may call it, they move to a leadership position. But once they reach the leadership position, they need to change their way of working. If they don't, then they remain operational managers. So that's the third piece, which is a challenge for leaders.
Sure.
But I'm open if there are questions or if there are any comments. If someone has any more thoughts around this, I'll be happy. Let's discuss. Let's have a conversation.
Sure. We have a few comments in the chat. For example, Uday is saying, why do you think are these leaders so excessively focused on numbers?
So Uday, what do you think? Give me your view, and then I can maybe also respond.
Uday, can you come on camera or off mute and share?
Hi, Uday here. I'm sorry, I'm traveling, so not possible to come on camera.
No worries.
Sure.
But this is what I also kind of noticed, and that's the reason I wanted to ask you. You know, my sense is that maybe that is what is demand, right? That has worked for them. Getting numbers has kind of led them to get into those leadership positions. And I also sometimes think that that's the way that we are driven, right from our childhood also. If you really look at even the child, when he brings the, what do you call, the his year of the end appraisals, or you can say whatever, like he's passing marks and all, that's what happens. The parents also are looking at numbers only. Like, I don't think that they really get deeper into what the child really learned, etc. Right? That's what I feel. But that's still, maybe I can just leave it open to others also to contribute to this. Yeah, thanks.
Hi, I'm Sudhakar here. Am I audible?
Yeah, so
Yes.
Dakar, we can hear you. Yeah, please go ahead.
So, so my perspective on this is that see, numbers are important, but it's very equally important to have a balanced perspective based on the context and the forum. So it all depends on who are you interacting with, and then what's the level of maturity of the people to whom you are speaking to. So I don't think the number formula will work if I am working at a level which is 2 or 3 levels down me. So there, empathizing and then solving their problem is what should be the focus. But I'm working with my directs one down. I think probably there I can be more rigorous with my numbers. So my point is really simple. All that I'm trying to put on is it all depends upon the kind of people with whom you're working at that moment in time. So if you're going to push numbers across all the levels, then I think you may not be able to get the result or even find yourself a right place in the forum of people. So that's my thought. I'll stop there.
Sure, sure, sure. We have more people, Sridhar and Imran, and then Colonel Ajay.
Yeah. Good evening, Shika and Jayesh. Good evening. Hope I'm audible now. Hope
Yes,
I'm
Yeah,
you
audible
are.
now.
Thank you.
So you have opened the box actually. Begin in your introductory remarks. You spoke, I could recall a few really, really important ones. My way or highway, like that. Not
Mm,
open-minded enough. Not prepared to uh, listen. I've always been doing this way. Let us continue. That's what you're probably hinting at. When we open nowadays in LinkedIn, sir, I'm sure all of us are there. Lot many materials are coming. Toxic leadership talk. Maybe I will borrow that phrase, which may be apt to label your points, if I may, if you may permit. So toxic leadership in LinkedIn, it's toxic leadership. Toxic. So many things are coming. So which means it is not confined to India alone. Because we are
mm,
still a growing country, third world country. Industrially, we are far behind than Western countries. But it applies to the Western people also. That's why it is in LinkedIn in the first place.
mm, mm,
So
mm,
worldwide it is happening. So what is happening? Many of my other colleagues already said that point. The numbers, numbers, numbers. We want to, in the name of trying to get the numbers, or have we already compromised? Have we means worldwide? I'm talking the senior management primarily. Have we already compromised to get the numbers? The culture, the so-called culture, which must have prevailed some 20 to 30 years back. Now people started rewarding people who give numbers, irrespective of their background. What helped them to come with numbers? Is it at the cost of culture, at the cost of
mm,
some good people first policies? So all
mm,
these things are coming into open. I'm just adding a few thoughts on this. And here I firmly believe the responsibility of the leader of the organization. So the buck stops there. The leader of the organization, it could be CEO, it could be the owner, it could be the investor, kind of activities and attitudes he is prepared to tolerate and reward. I think things come from there. This is my small suggestion and views. Thank you, Shika, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Sridhar, for sharing that. Yes, Imran.
Yeah, thank you. Fantastic thought, and a number of participants have already shared. I would like to slightly deviate from calling it numbers. Rather, it's
Mm,
I think it's all about performance. At the end of the day, we are all working towards performance, and there's nothing wrong in asking for performance. I think where leaders fail is when they do not provide adequate support. While there is a challenge to get the numbers or get performance, there is not enough emphasis on providing the tools, providing the support, and like Sridhar mentioned, creating the right kind of culture where people can succeed and meet the demand for performance or numbers. And that's square, fair and square, the onus on that lies in the leadership. It's not just about
sure.
focusing on the numbers. If you are not creating that kind of environment and providing the tools, then at the end of the day, you're just trying to demand something where only a few people will succeed who have the skills and the knowledge or the experience in the past. So, bottom line is there is always going to be the demand for high performance or getting numbers. Otherwise, we would just be a group of friends sitting on a table
Mm,
and having a chat. But at the end of the day, that's a different space. We are here together to achieve a certain goal, the common goal. And if you are hiring right, then obviously the person joining the company wants to perform. Otherwise, he would not be there. He or she would not be there. So the onus on the leadership is understanding the strengths of the person, and then if it is in line, then obviously promoting that. And if there's something that needs to be added to the person, how can the company, the culture, the leadership, and the supporting infrastructure provide the necessary support to help the person perform at the level expected of him or her.
Sure. Thank you so much for sharing, Imran. That was, yeah, I think very relevant. It is important to ensure that we are building people to succeed and instead of just we succeeding right now. Yeah. Ajay, you want to add something?
A very good evening to all the participants, and lovely, Mr. Sampat, for the way you threw in a beautiful red herring, which has got all of us running around in circles. Okay. So having said that, I quite agree with Imran when he said that numbers will always be there. There's no organization in this world, even Mother Teresa's organization has a target that we have to treat so many people in this quarter. So we can't run away from the numbers game. The point which makes a difference, which separates a leader from the others, is how does he achieve those numbers? And that how is what is where we need to redefine our sense of leadership. Now, if I'm giving you very silly examples, they may or may not make sense. But let's say I'm offered a job tomorrow in any company. It may be whatever. As a leader, if I have my value system, my vision, and my focus in the correct place, and if I find that that particular organization is going to demand of me to put in a work culture, a system of doing things which is going to go against my focus values and the way of doing things, I should not take that post. So herein lies the aspect of leadership that we are talking about. Organizations will be organizations, but we as leaders, if we stick to certain principles and values over a period of time, the ability of an organization to strong arm a CEO into doing whatever they want to do will change. I am privy to a set of companies where the CEOs have just resigned. They have not accepted this nonsense. So I think the basic framework as a leader is that I must know my values, my focus, and my vision, and how I want to go about doing things. And if wherever I join, it has to align with that. If it does not align with that, I should look for something else. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much for that, Ajay. Jayesh, you want to add to whatever everybody
Yeah,
said?
we got a lot of color around what are some of these pitfalls which are there, and interesting perspectives. I just want to add one piece more is that when we look at leaders, we normally think that leaders are sitting on the top. Yeah, of course, there are leaders on the top, but there are leaders in each rung of the organization, right? And they have their business to do, and they have their responsibility to deliver. And the pitfalls or the responsibilities and the pitfalls are not similar. They are very different. And at the junior level, the pitfalls are a little different. At the CXO level and the CEO levels, the pitfall are different. Colonel Ajay, I just want to add one piece. One of the options which you mentioned was if the values do not match, one should look for a different role possibly. That's one act of courage. I accept. And another act of courage is to stay there, yeah, and see what can happen. What can I do to make a difference? And I understand where you're coming from, Colonel Ajay, that one would have tried and tried and tried, and one sees that, okay, this does not work. So I will not be the hand by which something which I do not, which does not align to my values. I will not be the hand by which this will happen. I've seen that, and that's an act of courage. And another act, but there are different kinds of leaders. So from that perspective, there are other leaders who will do whatever is required to be done from within the system. So that's another act of courage, as I would see it. So just sharing a perspective, no, nothing right or wrong both ways.
Sure.
Yes, Shikha, anything else we
Yeah.
would like to discuss?
Thank you. There are a few comments which I would like to read out or highlight. So Narayan says that in many companies due to change, some inspiring leaders are sort of, asked to leave or forced to leave, right? while the company is not directly dependent on them, how can a company fill the leadership gap suddenly of such an inspiring person or individual who was leading the organization?
Yeah. So, of course, there are different kinds of organizations. There are organizations which are personality led, and then there are organizations which are system and process led. I won't always call a multinational to be system and process led only. If I look at Apple, it was personality led for a very, very long time. And there are process driven organizations which are many times led by a personality. So I think once the organization has a life of its own. Yeah, mostly. And when one is a large organization and is thriving, and in the phase of growth and thriving, then there will be leaders who are impactful and who will move ahead. Organization will be impacted, but it will continue to thrive. That's my experience. And when the leader moves, there is a lot of hue and cry publicly within the organization that the head is gone. This leader has been responsible for bringing the organization to this level. But we all know organization has a life of its own and is able to kind of morph like a amoeba and fill the gap. There are various ways in which the gap is filled. Sometimes it is from within, sometimes from outside. Sometimes part of that role is taken over by someone to whom this person has been a mentor. So there are various ways in which this gap is filled, but s- not in a small organization, but in a medium size or a large organization. Sometimes processes take precedence over leaders, and sometimes there are other leaders who come up the curve and take parts of this role and take things forward. So my experience has been, I don't want to take names here, but you know of many leaders who without whom you cannot think that this organization can exist, and we have seen them move, we've seen them pass away, and the organization still stands tall.
Yeah, yeah, true, so true. So the face of the organization, but while the organization still existed or did well,
Yes,
right? So,
yes.
so it was really the organization who was driving itself, while the brand and the person individual stood
Yeah.
there.
And many times when the organization starts over, yeah, yes, personalities make a lot of difference to take it to a certain space. But once the organization grows, becomes a
Hmm.
teenager and becomes an adult, then it has its life of its own.
True. Agree. Yeah, Sridhar, you have something to add?
Yes, sir, of course. Just to add to Jayesh,
Hmm.
uh, obviously organization is bigger than individuals. There's no question about it. But individuals do come and contribute in their own right. So organization can thrive, even though it is thankful to the people at the senior most level who have contributed. There is no true opinion about it. But mainly talking about the pitfalls which we are discussing today. I am just drawn into interesting point that it is possible one can be a champion and yet be gentleman. That's what we are discussing, ultimately. That's what you said, numbers. Are they mutually exclusive? A good ethical culture and a successful company number, and they coexist. They can coexist. But unfortunately, off late, we found that the shortcuts and other things to reach the numbers. And again, unfortunately, people who bring the numbers, anyway, they are being rewarded like that. Sports is the greatest example and inspiration for all of us, including day for yesterday, where we saw Gukesh from chess. So, draw a few uh, inspirations from, say, cricket or uh, that matter, tennis, cricket. Sachin Tendulkar, god of cricket, and he proved you can be a gentleman. Rahul Dravid is only next to him again. Again, he proved one can be a gentleman yet be a champion. That is about Indian cricket, world cricket. Tennis, Roger Federer, absolutely adored and loved and a champion. Because in 70s, sir, I would like to draw your attention. In 70s, I mean, we were all huge fans of Jimmy Connors, McEnroe, like that. But they were champions, but yet they had their own style. Whereas people like Roger Federer and other people, they brought in that you can be successful, yet be a gentleman. So that's where I think we should learn. So it is a lesson to the CEOs. That's what I'm trying to say. If you speak about frontline, second line manager, then we might be missing the point here today, honestly speaking. I firmly believe it is a CEO and the senior most management, investors, founders, they set the trend, as I said earlier, and they should decide this is the non-compromising, non-negotiable. These are all the framework like that. So then we can expect people to fall in. This is my suggestion. Thank you.
Sure, sure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Sridhar. Yes, Kanal Ajay.
Yeah, just a point about the previous speaker, Mr. Sundarajan. I agree. There are a large number of leaders who have managed public perceptions in a manner that they appear to be larger than life and maybe more ethical than the others. There are many, I mean, this is not a debate, but there are people with knowledge and information who will happily debate with you that Tendulkar is not the god he should be. And that goes for everybody.
True, true.
Everybody. So there are shades of gray to all aspects of leadership. What is important, I feel, is in actually trying to assess in the long term what the leaders know. If a leader has got a squeaky clean record, I don't think he's led at all. He's just had a good media team, because no leader can grow without making mistakes. No leader can grow without kicking out people or stepping on toes or being unpopular in some aspect or the other. What is important is what was the value system or the trajectory or the thought process of the organizational soul, if I want to give it a name, and how it aligned with the leader, and how both of them went about doing the best possible greater good to everybody. That's what I mean. And my question, sir, here is, when an organization grows to a state where individuals are unable to impact trajectories, how does that organization evolve?
What do you think, Ajay? You have this question. I'm sure you have thoughts. Why don't you share and then I can chime in?
Thank you for bouncing it back to me, but I really would not have much knowledge about
Okay,
how
okay,
this.
sure. Sure. I think it in my experience, and again, this is my experience, this is not something which is black and white. In my experience, once the organization can grow, most organizations will grow to a large extent and grow in size because they have something right in them, right? Either they understand they have got the pulse of the customer right, and everyone is customer. I've worked in organizations which are very customer focused. And as long as they continue to stay customer focused, there are a lot of things which are wrong in the organization. But because they are so customer focused, they understand the customer so well that they continue to grow. Yeah. So leaders may come, they may go, but because of the culture of customer focus, they continue to grow. Then there are some organizations which have understood at a certain point of time, they have the first mover's advantage. And because of being the first mover in a certain space, they have become so huge because the need was there and no one really saw it. And these were the first people to see it. And they were able to capture such a large market that when other organizations came in, they are taking a long time to actually capture any part of the market because Google Pay has captured the market by 80%. I don't know what is the number, but 80%. Now you may come up with whatever else. WhatsApp has captured the market. Telegram may have much better features, but customers will not switch from WhatsApp to Telegram. So once there is one or two, possibly one very unique thing of the organization through which the organization is servicing the customer. Either it is stickiness or it is the focus on customer, or let's say if it is a different sector where one particular thing is what matters to the customer and they have caught that, the entire culture, the entire ecosystem, the organization is moving towards that and continues to move towards that. So therefore, if a leader being there or not being there, then doesn't matter, and the organization keeps on expanding and growing. Of course, all organizations have their life. There will be a time when things will change and then organization will die. But from a growth perspective, I've seen most organizations grow in this manner, and it is that one as you called from a soul perspective. So there is this purpose, or there is this part of the culture which the organization understands very well. You know, very early days in early days of Kotak Bank is when I had joined Kotak, and at that point of time, our understanding of we were not big at that point of time compared to many other banks, but as Kotak, we used to service a particular segment of the customer who did not get loans from other banks. However, how did we give loans to them? Because we understood their P&L, which may not be available in black and white, but we understood their business. So we were able to give them a loan, which was more secure than most other banks. That's part one. The second part is because no other bank gave the loan, we were able to give it at a higher rate, right? So very profitable. Understanding of the customer segment was very, very good. So in that segment, we grew really, really well. And then we move to other segments. So that, but this DNA of understanding the customer, even if you look at Kotak today, it has diluted to a certain extent, but the DNA still exists like that. Various examples, I'm sure Colonel and others also, you would have also had an experience and seen organizations grow like that.
Sure.
I
Thank
know we
you.
are digressing from the leadership pitfalls piece, but if this is interesting, I'm happy to contribute.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so I think with respect to leadership pitfall, Colonel Ajay, if you, unless you want to add something, I wanted to also hear the global perspective from Jayesh. As we keep on the topic also, so the cultural differences across different regions, right? And how do they influence the way leaders respond to failure or recovery, right? So because he has the exposure, but if you want to add that, Jayesh.
Sure. So in my experience, of course, I won't only call it leaders pitfall and but from a cultural perspective, every many parts of India are different, and again globally also people what they value, what they do not value. Although we like to believe that the basic values are same, but how they manifest are so very different. There is a so let's look at Asia, yeah, and countries which are developing countries. Yeah, in my experience, from a pitfall perspective, when things go wrong, we look out for who is responsible. Yeah. It's a very natural focus. I don't know whether if you look at in your particular families, in your teams, in your organizations, when things go wrong, it is a very natural focus to look at who who screwed up. Yeah. Who is the person who was in charge who did not do what he or she was supposed to be doing? Yeah. That is why this has failed. So first we look out for who, and there is a lot of drama around who and a lot of finger pointing, this and that. We rarely, in many organizations, we rarely go to why things went wrong and what actually went wrong, and then why this happened, why this what happened. We rarely get into that kind of analysis or thought process, especially at the leadership level, because things are moving very, very fast. We just want to look at who did well. As it is true for a lot of Western countries too, but in a more in a country, my experience with other countries, especially in the West, I work with a US based organization, and I see there the entire focus was what went wrong. Yeah. So what so first we look at what went wrong, and then we come into who did what was wrong, right? It was when I had that experience for the first time, it was very refreshing, and I didn't understand what is actually happening because I'm so used to looking at अच्छा किसने गलती की किस कौन है ये जिसने because of which this went wrong. From there, it was very refreshing to see that when things went wrong, the first question which was asked was, अच्छा what went wrong because of which we had failure. So how do we look at what went wrong and how can we start addressing that? And then yes, of course, we went to okay, this person was not able to do it because was he not trained enough? Did he not have enough information? So there was so much of analysis done as to understand how this person did not succeed and what went wrong there. Again, what went wrong rather than who did what was wrong. So this is a very, from a pitfall perspective, in Asia, the pitfall is that we directly go to the person. Once we find the person, we move ahead. And in again, I'm generalizing. This is not true for all the Asian countries, and it's not true for all Western countries. But in my experience in the Western countries, we largely look at what went wrong rather than finger point and say who went wrong. Early in my career, I worked with a Japanese company, and it was very, very different. Again, very different. And the company, in the company, only thing they needed to look at, they immediately drew a flow chart as to understand in very great detail what went, where the things went wrong, and they were very quick to correct it. So compared to the Western countries, some of the one Japanese organization which I worked with had this entire piece of going down to the root cause and trying to and changing the what needed to be changed at the root cause rather than at the surface level. So these are few different perspectives I saw from when I worked with in different countries and in different organizations which from an origin perspective or from different countries. I'm sure all of you also have your experiences. Please do share.
Yeah, Sridhar and Imran, I think you have something to share.
I need to endorse Jayesh. He said Japan and he was okay. But anyway, Toyota 5Ys are really popular. And fishbone matrix, yeah, to go to the root cause of the problem, wasn't effective like that. Of course, that is as I would like to know your views on this. Yesterday, international development, once again, let us talk about international development also. In Amazon, and Elon Musk, Tesla, both were very keen. What is of, come back to office, come back to office. That is a raging question today. Come back to office. While others are manufacturing people are in the office, why don't you come to office? That's what Elon Musk seems to say. Even though he's a hugely successful person. Again, Amazon. What happened yesterday? Amazon demanded everybody come back to the office, but suddenly they find they have no infrastructure. So policies are there, immediately followed by a pitfall. Maybe till May, they are not even in a position to provide people their rooms and spaces and other things. So even the best managed companies, Amazon is today supposed to be the showcase. Showcase. You are talking about customer centricity. That's what they say. But what happens at times when we forget the internal customers? That's what has happened probably yesterday. What is your take on this, sir?
No, I agree. I mean, and when we look at names like Amazon, Google, and Apples of the world, we believe they are perfect. As I said, they have got maybe one or two things very, very right, because of which they have thrived. They are doing very well.
Very well.
But there are
Well
many
said.
areas where they are not great. So
Well said.
yeah, very, very true. I agree with you.
Sure, thank
Yes,
you.
Imran.
Imran?
Thank you. I just wanted to bring in some scenarios, one of which already Sridhar brought out. So thank you for raising that question. The other things were a couple of scenarios, particularly in the Indian context. We're looking at startups have become unicorns and then faced a lot of issues thereafter to stay true to their reputation and also scale further. So in these scenarios where you taste success from your perspective, how does that challenge of sustaining or staying true to your purpose is being handled? And the other is another scenario in which oftentimes pitfalls occur is leadership transitions, where oftentimes founders find it very difficult to let go. And one who succeeds is the one who has to face the brunt of the number of changes that the founder is perhaps not agreeing with. And then there is sort of a power struggle over there. So two specific scenarios, would love to hear your thoughts on that.
I will respond, but again, let me respond first, and then I'll ask you what are your views to Imran. One is whenever there is a a leadership transition, or when a small organization, a startup becomes a unicorn, etc., or when a startup gets a lot of funding, etc., or when I'm just even looking at it from a perspective of when there is an M&A which is happening, when there is an acquisition which happens, I come back to this. We look at numbers, and we look at many other things we look at in terms of whether it makes sense for us to acquire, whether it makes sense to get funding, and for the people who are funding for the PE firms to look at and say that, yes, this is where we would like to fund. And for the founders to say, yes, we need the money, we are getting the money this way or that, let's get the money. Again, we look at the hard pieces, the pieces which are more visible. We focus on that when some of these things happen. But what we don't focus on is culture, leadership, some of these values. These are some questions which we we think we give a lot of thought to, but they are always in the background. They are not in the forefront when a decision like this is taken. Very differently, when many times when people get married, they look at whether the person is earning well, if etc., etc., whether it's from the same financial background, etc., etc. But what they don't look at is what the person is. Many times, I'm just what the person is all about. So when that happens, there is always a challenge, because you are only focusing on one thing. Again, I come back to the entire piece of numbers. You're looking at, yes, from a numbers perspective, it makes sense for us to get more funding so that we are able to grow. But from whom you are getting the fund? Are the PE fund managers, are they aligned to what you are trying to build? Right? Even the PE fund managers will agree at that point of time, saying that yes, we will give you this, we go ahead and do that. But once there is pressure on the system, then a lot of things start going wrong. So I would say that whenever there is a marriage, whenever there are teams which are coming together, whenever there is transition, let's look at, I say what we have said in the beginning, that numbers are here to stay. They are important. And that is the reason for the organization to be there, for a lot of these transitions to happen. But the transition will succeed only if there is a match to a large extent on the softer aspects too. I don't like the word softer aspects, but that's understood best. If people understand from a values perspective, there is a match. From a leadership thought process perspective, there is a match. From what the organization, what the founders are looking at from a short and long-term perspective, what is their vision? What are they willing to let go? What is their core which they want to hold on to? If there is a match there, then there is chance for success. Otherwise, we've seen any of these, right, from M&As and growth of the organization, etc. People believe when money comes in, or when M&A happens, now we have become stronger. But I'm sure you have had experiences, Imran, and others too. Well, when that happens, the organization actually takes 2 steps behind. It doesn't take 2 steps forward. Publicly, it may look like it has taken 2 steps forward, but it takes 2 steps behind, and it takes quite some time to come back and do what it is supposed to do. If sometimes acquisition, many times, not sometimes, many times in these transitions, if we don't focus on the other aspects rather than the hard facts, then many times there is failure. It doesn't work at all. I'm sure I have worked in most of the organizations I've worked there. I enjoy working in organizations which are undergoing transitions, and this perspective I bring to the table to the extent I can. I won't say that I always succeed, and I succeed in some ways. I don't succeed in some ways, but I like to be in spaces where I'm able to bring this to the table, where this is important. In a running organization, many times this may not be as important, but especially in a transitioning organization, this part of leadership becomes very, very important. And I enjoy working in these spaces. So I am digressing.
No, thank you so much. Just picking up on what you said, because you focused more of your response and your perspective on transitions, I would like to hear your thoughts again on, let's say, change initiatives in established organizations. Those are also moments where a lot of pitfalls occur, and either there's a spectrum of responses. Either the organization trusts the change on the people, saying this is, like you said, my way or the highway. The leadership wants this change to happen, and whether or not you like it, you have to do it. And on the other end of the scale, there is perhaps maybe a consensus participation driven approach that might be employed, but in that situation, the change does not take place effectively. So what's your experience on pitfalls to avoid when creating some sort of change initiative in established organization with the people who are already entrenched in the system? They are used to a certain way of doing things, which that needs to be changed given the circumstances of the situation.
Again, there is no golden arrow there. It's a mix of both these approaches. Both these approaches need to be taken in right measure at the right time. Yeah, if we don't involve people, then and there are parts of the organization and parts of how the organization is moving where you may not need to involve a lot of people, but change can happen in the organization, right? That part of the organization. And there are parts of the organization which require that we take the people along, because people are the main ingredient in terms of if something is very process driven, then it's easy to change the process, and therefore many times when we are changing the process, not too much of deviation from a person's behavior is required. So then you focus more on the process, and there you can possibly look at what are the best practices and in some way look at my way, the highway, saying that this is what needs to be done. But where change is required, where people need to change their behavior and their participation is so very important in the success of that part of the business. There, if we don't take people, then I've seen things fail. Again, there needs to be a good balance between, you can use, I mean, I'm sure all of you know methods like LSIP, etc. You can use so many organization development methodologies where you can involve people but move quickly. So you involve them, but move the entire organization rather quickly towards a certain space by involving them. So you can do that. But if you ruminate too much and focus too much on what every individual and every team, every department needs, and getting a tick and yes from everyone, then there is analysis paralysis, and the organization comes to a standstill. So there is no one way of doing this. Of course, wherever from a business, I'm just repeating myself, wherever from a business perspective, people are driving the business, they need to be involved, but to a certain extent. Once we get the views, we understand, we are able to put it into a way which addresses many of the main concerns and many of their main ideas, then we need to make a plan and help them move along. Otherwise, it's very difficult to move the elephant, which is there. You asked a very specific question in terms of in an organization which is doing, which is doing fine, which is stable. That's the most difficult organization to move. When an organization is not doing well, we all understand that they are looking for change because their challenge is survival, right? So they are happy to change. It's like every human being. When I put on weight, I realize that I've put on weight. Now I need to lose it. Then I do what I need to do. But when I come back to good health, then there is temptation to eat sweets and do other stuff. So it's easier to move a organization which is not doing well. It's difficult to kind of move the elephant when it is doing well and sleeping. That's my experience. But yeah, we have other views. Ram, Colonel Ajay.
Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ram, you want
First of all, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Shika, and thank you, the esteemed panel of list of members and all the speakers who've been talking all these few minutes. I think great opportunity to learn from the people like you. I think I'd like to contribute here from the experience what I've gained all these years. One interesting aspect on avoiding or avoiding all these pitfalls from leadership in an organization is what I can say is, if a leader is able to create that psychological safety in the organization, irrespective of whether you're driving numbers, whether driving great change initiatives in the organization, the psychological safety is created if the people feel that they have a point to discuss without hesitation, without any frightenness or anything that they feel that if I say something, my boss would corner me or they will be taken for a ride. The psychological safety is driven by the respective leaders. I'm sure there's a great amount of opportunity to grow as a leader and even as an organization as well. Probably this small aspect, if all leaders can drive, I'm sure there would not be any pitfalls. Even there are pitfalls, people can come back stronger and work together and drive a great organization and system in place. That small point, in the interest of time, I'd like to contribute here. Thank you, first of all.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you so much for contributing that. Colonel Ajay, you want to add something?
Sure. Thank you so much. And firstly, once again, I think Mr. Sampat has done an amazing job of keeping the conversation so well stimulated and progressive. So I have a crazy sort of a question for everybody. We just discussed organizational evolution and how, organizations grow through, get to a self-sustaining level where leaders hardly make a very big impact. I know this is a loaded statement. We can argue for, against, and all that. So my question is something like this. I mean, forgive my craziness. If an organization evolves to levels where individuals do not make an impact, why do they need brilliance in leadership? That's one part of the question. Added to this question is, let's say tomorrow, the technology that we are going into and the way we are, if we are able to revive Steve Jobs, how much would he be able to impact Apple the way it is today? Okay, that's a crazy question. And now coming back to change initiatives. Now, change initiatives, I think the previous speaker was, I'm sorry, forgive me for getting out of the name part of it. Let me get, because I think the videos.
Ram or Imran.
Imran had a very beautiful perspective. Now, what I want to add here is that the rates of change that we are dealing today are exponential. If you look at the rates of change 10 years back and what changes today, you just cannot compare to it. So how does change management happen? How do you adapt to the extremely fast evolving situation is something which I think every change management leader or expert is actually confused about. So this brings me to a very simple thought, which as leaders in whatever capacity we are, however we are applying ourselves. There's a beautiful quote in the Gita. It says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the strength to change the things that I can, and most important, the wisdom to know the difference between the two. So that is, I think, the basic thing. It all reverts back to the value system we are following, the way we are, enmeshed with the organization, and what is our intent. Intent is very, very important. And I think the previous speaker had said something about psychological safety. A lovely term. Maybe I would like to rephrase it in old world philosophy as trust. If I have trust in my leader, I will follow the leader to the ends of the earth. So that's a few things I just thought I'll add on. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you so much, Colonel Ajay. Jayesh, you want to?
No, we have 2 minutes, so I think it's time to wrap up. Shika, you want to say anything? But I think I enjoyed this conversation. I always enjoy conversations rather than just speaking, and we got interesting perspectives from everyone. Although I would have liked to get perspectives from many more people too. It would have been more enriching. Maybe next time we can do that. But I know we started from Pitfalls. We moved to in various directions. But I think all of it was valuable. I enjoyed this session. Thank you for inviting me, Shika.
Thank you so much, Jay. It was wonderful to have you here and to hear so many, great insights from you. I think we maneuvered from talking about the pitfalls to also understanding what the organization can change, what the leadership can change, right? And we also talked about different scenarios. I think trust and psychological safety, which Raman bring in, was also very, very important. I also really liked the example which stayed me is, should we be pointing to the who or try to find out the what, right? And solving it at a root cause instead of pointing fingers, right? So as an organization, can we start doing that to ensure, we address the problem as a root cause? Thank you so much, Jayesh. Thank you everyone for joining today and being so contributive. We'd like more and more people to contribute in these webinars and share from your experience. Please don't forget to fill the feedback form. It will help us make this more engaging and wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Thank you so much, Jayesh, for being here today. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jayesh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jayesh.
Thank you so much.